What is up, guys? Welcome back to us. Day number 3 here for the IESF Asians Championships. It's the road to the WEC. And now, once again, it's me, Nice, who joined here with Mirko to bring you the action. We'll have another caster with us later today, but we're kicking it off here with an exciting matchup. It is going to be Vietnam versus Indonesia. As you guys saw, some of you are already piling into the stream. So real quick, before we talk about the matchup, I want to invite you guys as well to check out the official website to stay updated to the standings. You can go to IESF.gg. You'll probably see Nightbot putting it in the chat and the YouTube, and you guys can check out all the standings and the groupings and stay up to date. Now, with that being said, Mirko, it's been 2 days, man. 2 days of a bunch of action already. I feel like some surprises as well. So for this matchup, how are you feeling? As people like to ask you, how are you feeling, Mirko?
It should be okay. I should be feeling good. It really depends on the result later, right? If Indonesia can get it done or not. But it looks like for Indonesia and Vietnam, they're kind of tied in the standings now. It's 1-1, 1-1. So they both have, 3 points to play with now. So both teams very desperately need a win to get to the next stage. In Group B, it's already kind of a tough group already. You know, we got Malaysia, we got Indonesia, Vietnam as well, and Laos. So the fact that Indonesia lost yesterday means that they cannot just, take a chill pill today. They got to go all out here up against Vietnam. They cannot hold out for too long. They can't wait. Yeah, they cannot wait. They can't be too patient with the moves. They got to take that momentum.
They definitely do. So this is today's schedule. And as you guys see, we are going to be opening up. There's these 10 a.m. matches are all happening, right? But we are streaming Vietnam versus Indonesia. And like I said, you guys can all check out the standings for the off-stream matches that are happening. As you guys see, there's a plenty of them. And then later on, of course, we're going to see Cambodia and Thailand. And then later on, Myanmar and also Thailand and some more matches, of course. The ending match for today, though, we go back to MLBB women's. So these first 3 matches for you guys in store for you are all these men's matches. But again, a lot is happening off stream. So if you really want to stay updated and see where everybody's kind of falling into place, then you have to head over to the website. Now, with that too, they're all best of 3s. I know we had, kind of some mixes of best of 5s yesterday, and some people asked, why was there a best of 5? Again, they're all divided into a subcategory as well. And yesterday, when you saw the best of 5s, there was only 2 teams in that region, that sub-region. For example, Guam and New Zealand. So they just had a best of 5 and they moved to the WEC directly. So for this one, again, I think there's nine nations for this category. That's why you have all those games happening at once. Vietnam and Indonesia is that first match for the day. And, I think some people would be rather surprised, maybe, depending where you're from, on what happened with yesterday in Malaysia versus Indonesia. Mirko, anything that stood out to you the most on why Malaysia was able to go and get the 2-0 against Indonesia?
I think for the first thing that I want to talk a little about when it comes down to that matchup, right, how Malaysia was able to take control of the game all the way from the start as well, I think has got to be in the drafts. It does feel like Malaysia had a better grasp on the meta compared to Indonesia after the patch that we got. And Indonesia, they really tried to implement some of the new stuff, right? They tried to go for the Broly pick as well. They tried going for still the Fredgen, but with a temporal rain. And I actually just figured that out. Shout out to Arashi, by the way. He went into a custom game to test that out, how that actually works out. So you don't actually need to use your ult to get your other abilities, your skill 1 and skill 2 cooldown for the temporal rain. All you need to do is use the taunt. Because apparently the taunt, you level up the taunt together with your ult, right? So technically it kind of counts as an ult somewhere.
Got it.
So that's why it was used. But yeah, they tried their best to, implement some of these new strats, some of these new items, emblems as well into their gameplay, but maybe they just haven't really gotten the the full understanding of it just yet. They're still in the experimental phase, it feels. And maybe with that experience now, with a loss to Malaysia, now coming in against Vietnam, they should be able to adjust accordingly. They should also understand that maybe the prio picks, maybe the Ling, the Rogers that we saw from Malaysia might be prioritized here for both Vietnam and Indonesia.
Okay, we'll see exactly how they want to start that draft because we've seen a lot of different things, but we're going to take a look at the lineup here for Vietnam. First, we got Zhao Miao. Love the combination there. He. Whole lot of he's there. Nart and then Fugo. So Zhao and Miao, Nart and Fugo, these guys from Vietnam. Again, we have to see exactly what their playstyle is going to be because already on the off-stream game that we saw, or that we didn't see, but we saw on the website, they are tied 1-1 right now with Indonesia. So there's a lot of weight to this match. If I would say the least, there's a lot to wait here, a lot weighted here to going to the playoffs spot, of course, and then moving on to the WEC. For Vietnam, I'm going to just assume that they play very, very fast because so far from what we've seen, aside from our first 32-minute game that we saw yesterday between Bahrain and Jordan, for this region, this area, man, we know that they like to clash it out and battle it out, and we saw too how big the changes are with the Lord now. So I feel like this really highlights some of these play styles for these nations, and we're going to take a look at the Indonesian roster as well in just a second. But similarly, like what we saw yesterday, they want to battle it out. They want to test things out. And of course, for Indonesia, very familiar names here. We have Boots, Albert, CW, Sands, and Keyboy. And, at least from my perspective, I was just watching the game yesterday because you and Arashi were casting this.
Yep.
And I was surprised with the result, but I was also like, I can see that there's some experimentation going on because I think all these teams really are doing that. At the same time, I would say that, it feels like Malaysia, for some reason, the meta, and I don't know, because I can't say that we have established a meta just yet, but we know that Malaysia is known for that certain strategy and that Lungar type gameplay, where they want to just battle it out. Indonesia is as well, I would say, coming here in comparison to some of the teams here from the Philippines. But I would say Malaysia just really profited in the fact that what they drafted in those games, both those games, and the way that they executed it worked out really well for their play style and highlighted the fact that they were very confident with what they brought to the table. And I think Indonesia, I'm sure they learned a lot from the matchup there versus Malaysia. And I'm sure that we'll see some of those key changes here happen for this matchup against Vietnam.
I think I gotta agree, right? For Indonesia and Malaysia, both of them have a very, very aggressive style. And yeah, for Vietnam as well. By the way, just a fun fact for you guys, Vietnam is also the record holder when it comes to the fastest game. And it was also at IESF, just in 2022 in Bali, up against Namibia. 6 minutes,
they were the
11 seconds.
Oh,
6:11. It was even less than 15, right? Yeah, so Vietnam, they're known to go for the aggressive style, especially now considering the meta is kind of pushing them towards that way too. I think Vietnam are going to go start, shooting all the way from the start of the game. They're going to try to get an early game snowball as fast as possible. But also, I don't know if this lineup is deceiving again, because we did see Boots in that lineup as the XP lane, but yesterday we saw Lutpi play. Same thing as well. On the lineups, it was Boots, but in-game, it was Lutpi. So I think it is going to be Lutpi that actually comes down and plays for Team Indonesia. That has been the main XP for Fnatic Onyx for the longest time for this team. But honestly, I think the other parts that I want to talk about from that loss yesterday, Indonesia versus Malaysia, has got to be the jungle. I think for Albert, there's still a lot of improvements that he needs to make, and I think it should be because he's a little bit rusty there, right? I think for the team as well, they're preparing for multiple tournaments here and there. Maybe Albert didn't get as much training, but with that experience yesterday and now with a reality check that they can't just take this group lightly, they can't just go and go through this group as easy as they expected. They're going to have to dig deep again and play with that meta. They have to try to experiment again, and they have to try to rebuild the confidence, because it's really strange, Naisu, to see someone like Albert, a guy that is known to play Ling, to play these assassins, to not go for the Ling when it's up for grabs, and giving it over to Malaysia. That choice to not deny the Ling or not to pick it up for themselves proved to be costly there against Malaysia, because Malaysia have a phenomenal Ling player as well in Skies, and I think it should be the same here against Vietnam. If Indonesia hesitate to pick these prio picks up, Vietnam are going to take it, and Vietnam will understand how to play it in the early game, how to utilize that big pick to snowball and take control of the game.
It's funny because I'm looking here at their matches that were off stream, because I just wanted to get a peek at what was drafted and how long they went. So like both Indonesia and Vietnam, swept Laos, and they were rather quick games. So there was no game that I think that was over 13 minutes. It's looking like Indonesia did it faster with a 10:36. Like they had a 10:36 game here. And it's funny that you mentioned the Ling, because in that game that was 10:36, the Ling was picked up. So that was locked in. And then it looks like Vietnam plays the Ling as well. So it almost makes you wonder, like, with that information being out here, if they're going to contest the Ling, for example, or some of the other assassin heroes that we've seen banned out. Even yesterday, right? There was so many banned out. There was the Ling, the Hayabusa. Here in Asia, we haven't seen the Hanzo being banned out yet, like we did in
Not
Africa,
yet.
you know, but that could possibly even pop up still. And I think just overall, you see a lot of Valentina from both of them. Interesting lineup from Vietnam, though, yesterday. They had a Valentina Zask combination, and it looks like that Zask went into the gold lane. It seems like it did. So Vietnam might have something up their sleeves, you know, in terms of their experimentation and whatever heroes they bring to the table here. And I think, you know, for both of them, we can just kind of expect, let's see if they go the assassin route. If they do, if it's, for example, Albert that gets his hands on this Ling, or Vietnam that gets it, they could also go ahead and play around the fact that we have seen pretty good utility junglers still. It's just they're used differently. Like you mentioned with the Fredrin, I'm glad you guys tested that out, because I was kind of wondering, like, how does that temporal rain work? But now it makes sense. You know, you get to do it with the energy eruption, right? You mentioned it was the energy eruption, so they have that. And then Baksha has been another, I feel like, mainstay. Like he's almost coming up more than obviously the Fredrin and the Barretts before. So I feel like Baksha is doing a better time at like fitting in currently. And maybe part of that too is just the fact that he moves around the map so much, and usually when it's paired up with Baksha, you have an Angela usually. So if it's the Angeling, great. Maybe it's the Baling. I don't know if that Boxling. I don't know if that works, but that could work. And Jaxia could work too, you know, whichever way you want to do it, man. You know, it's up to you. But that's the thing. I think it's either the Bakshas that's contested, the Rogers we've seen constantly pop up. And for both of these playstyles, now that I've looked at the stats here from their off-stream games, they both had dominating sweeps against Laos. Now it's their time to go ahead and go against each other. And I'm hoping we kick off today with a 3-game series, because we had it yesterday. And now, you know, today, as we get a little bit closer to the playoffs and, you know, the seedings start to happen here, this is where I want those 3 games, you know, those 3 games. Hopefully they're not all 32 minutes, you know, but it was good to see finally a long game yesterday.
Day number 1, we started off with a series that didn't go for full clean sweep, right? It was 3-1 to Kazakhstan. Day 2, we did it again with Indonesia. Actually, no, with Cambodia versus Myanmar going 2-1. So it'll only fit the pattern. We've been a big fan of patterns here all throughout the African regional qualifiers and now even the Asian regional qualifiers. So let's see if that pattern can continue. For Indonesia and Vietnam, 2 teams that really want to fight for that early game, 2 teams that really want to fight for the early to mid game control. It does make sense that they are going to be a little bit more of a risk taker in these games, right? Especially in the early stage. So whoever takes control of the early game, they should be able to take control of the game. They should be able to develop the snowball. But my concern right now, or you know, one of my questions right now for the meta game is, where does Lo Yi fit in in this meta? Where does she fit in? Because it's kind of different now with the diversion being nerfed. We saw even Sans try to utilize it yesterday, and we did see some of these creative ways that you can still use a diversion, but it just feels like you're kind of limited. You're already kind of denied from going for, you know, all these spams to reveal vision, because back in the day with the Lo Yi, with the diversion being on such a short cooldown, you can just keep on spamming that. Spamming into the bottom lane, just getting vision. If someone's there, all right, don't take it. And if you do want to take it, it still makes sense. But now, because the window is a bit smaller, I think it's a lot smaller, especially in the early game when it's, you know, when you just leveled it up, it just makes it kind of difficult to utilize. Like, they go to the bottom lane, once they see the Lo Yi and bot, they know that for the next 2 minutes maybe it's not really going to be up, it's not really going to be a threat. And maybe later on in the game, if it does go to the super late game, then we can get to see the normal creative Lo Yi diversions. But even the chip, these global presence heroes like the chip, the Lo Yi, we haven't seen a whole lot of success on these 2 picks. Lo Yi is a bit more 50-50, I'll give him that. But for the chip,
this has been good.
He's been the top prio pick in every MPL for the longest time before the patch, and now as the patch drops, he just disappears. Gone, completely gone. And we thought, you know, with the chip, you would actually be able to push in that early game even harder because there's already a Sky Piercer, there are already these big items for those early game picks. So if you want to go for early game brawls, it makes sense, in theory at least, that the chip would do good, right? He brings everyone into the fight, brings everyone to go and get that snowball early, but we've seen it once, I think, in the Asian regional qualifiers, and it was from New Zealand, and it didn't work too well. They weren't able to get the win on that chip. So the two global presence heroes that are still relevant, I guess, should be just the Moskov and the Angela. Those are the two picks that have still been working out.
Is that, and I would say, like, is this a welcomed change? Like, did people have enough of Lo Yi and Chip already? Because it was, like you said, and especially in the professional leagues, it was picked up all the time, or it had to be banned. And it was in a weird kind of state where it's like, if one of the teams does get it, it's such a huge upper hand that brings to the table, which is so weird because Lo Yi was not, I mean, she was slept on for so long. Like, think how long Lo Yi's been out. I'm not even recall like when she was released in the game, but at one point she just got a little bit of a buff, and then boom, here she's every single match. So for me to see that change kind of unfold here for the past couple of days, I'm like, you know what? I like it. I like that she's not as strong. And to an extent, we saw some teams do crazy things with diversion, you know, and I feel like at the same time, with the current state of the game, let's say the cooldown didn't change. Let's say it was like still the same for the most part. But all the items and the changes that with the Lord and stuff came through, I think you still have to be very calculated in the usage of the ultimate, because just like I said yesterday, I was like, man, you get to the even 32-minute Lord was already kind of crazy, but it was happening before that. Like even around the mid-20 mark, you know, you're having some of these Lord fights break out and you're seeing it. And some teams can't fully commit to like just holding the Lord there. But with a Lo Yi, a lot of times before the changes came out, they just be popping diversion after diversion, not even taking it though. Like sometimes it was just to juke them out, to think that they were going to go on this portion of the bush or, you know, in one of those hidden bushes and then come through the Lord that way. But now it's a lot more calculated. And overall, I just feel like Chip, I don't know. Like Chip is great. I think the shortcut can still be utilized. It's just for some reason we have not seen it work out too well. I don't know what exactly changed or made it so difficult for Chip to be able to work in a lot of these compositions. I think he still fits. Maybe it's like more now, instead of him just being banned or picked up, it's like he's a niche pick. He's still very valuable when it's picked up in a certain lineup, but you know, leave it at that. So interestingly enough, we'll see if these pop up here. But like I said, I think the Ling is going to be in contention for both these teams, as now we jump into the draft here for game number 1 in this best of 3 between Vietnam and Indonesia. Again, for you guys joining us just now while we wait for the draft here, check out the official website for the updated standings and brackets at IESF.gg. And you guys can get a peek at what's been going on. These two teams both swept their opponents in the previous off-stream games, and they're sitting at 1-1 in the standings. So they both have tied points. Now they need to pull through ahead. And interesting, as we were talking about it, there's the chip. It's going to be banned out by Indonesia first.
All right, so they're going to be respected here, and it seems, you know, it makes sense this time around. With the chip ban, because of the fairness ban, Vietnam really wanted to set up for that chip, really wanted to set up for the early ganks and to try to take away the maybe second HP bar that you can get with the Netherrealm. They go straight for the fairness ban. That's already very, very unique of a start, right? We don't really see a lot of fairness first ban. We usually see that for a lot of different heroes, but not the fairness. Maybe even the Roger at this point of the game, right? We've been talking about how Roger has been super prio because he's been able to be used as a flex pick into jungle, into gold, and it works in both lanes really, really well. Both roles really, really well. But it seems, again, for Indonesia, it's still going to be the same bans. Chip and Harith. They're still prioritizing that Harith ban over some of the others like the Roger as well. Meanwhile, for Vietnam, this is what we've come to expect really on the blue side. On blue side, you get so much more room to actually go for respect bans over the prio bans, because red side's automatically going to be the one forced to go for the red for the prio bans because of that first pick. And that's why I think across all the different regions, blue side has been getting way more successful, right? They've been getting so much more value in the meta game, and it seems it is going to be the Angela as well. Finally, we get to see a prio ban from the side of Vietnam, but I guess it's a bit of respect as well for Indonesia. They could just go for the Angeline combo if Vietnam leave it open and go for a different first pick. But now for Indonesia, the big question is that Lo Yi still super prio? Or will they go for the Roger? And it is going to be the Roger. That's the adjustment made by Indonesia. The Roger that kind of terrorized them as well yesterday, all the way in the early phase of the game. Even in the jungle, I think it was, yeah, it was Skies on the Roger, right, yesterday. And then it was Loliel on the Moskov.
Where there is light, there are also shadows.
So interestingly enough that they go this way and they make it work. So Lo Yi's locked in.
Lo Yi does get locked in here by Vietnam. Still a first pick prio, despite, you know, all of our doubts that we were talking about earlier, that we raised earlier about the Lo Yi, how limited you are to make those kind of like feints happen. Back in the day, very easy to do those feints, just pop in a diversion, make them think that you're going to be rotating back and then maybe look for a different angle of attack, or even just utilizing it to clear waves like we saw usually, right, with the Claude. You get a Claude and the Lo Yi, you should be able to clear out these waves together with that Lo Yi, but it's going to be the Ling and the Farsa. There you go, Indonesia finding a little bit of confidence to pull off that Ling, but it does give Vietnam an opportunity now to go for maybe even a Baxia, to try to stop the Ling from snowballing all the way from the start. Maybe if they want to go for additional CC, the Fredrin could still work. I'm not a big fan of the Temporal Rain, though, still. Even though, now it makes sense, you know, why you would go for the Temporal Rain and get the cooldowns off of the taunt. Me and Arashi, we kind of agree that for Fredrin, at least, it's still the three best picks on the emblems, at least for Fredrin, has got to be the Impure Rage, the Concussive Blast, or the Brave Smite, either one of those three. And it is going to be the Claude and the Fredrin locked in, that combo that we've been talking about with the Lo Yi. You can go for the clears, but it works a bit differently now. You do that and you're open to a lot of attacks, and you technically have a time restraint as to how long you can't make creative plays happen.
I like the, this is almost going back to pretty much what we had before, like meta-wise, you know, Claude, Fredrin, Lo Yi locked in from Vietnam. I'm wondering if there's going to be that much of a change, though, for the last two picks. But you can see that Terizla locked in. So I'm assuming Indonesia might want to go ahead and ban out the Yuzhong, at least to force a different pick in the XP lane to deal with this Terizla. Also, another hero we've seen pop up constantly and do really well is the Export Mirko. So, you know, that might be an option too, because main thing here is really allowing this Ling to shine. Like I said, in their matches off stream, Albert obviously loved playing it. They had a very quick game. We're talking about 10 and a half minute game when he played the Ling against Laos. So, you know, with that, I want to see how they kind of complement it. They already have a ton of damage with the Farsa too. Great lockdown with the penalty zone. And it looks like they're going to go ahead and lock down the Arlot, not being able to be picked up. So we'll see if that is going to be another XP lane ban, or possibly even roam, because right now you still have to see where that wants to fit in. Looks like a Nathan ban, late game potential security there. So this also might mean Indonesia wants to pick up possibly, I'm wondering if they go Brody. That was the other hero they picked up in their game against Laos. They picked up Brody. You mentioned you were a fan of it currently in the meta. Look at this Masha. Here's the Masha ban. So interesting last bans. XP lane for Vietnam. I'm almost just assuming, like I said, the Yuzhong does get picked up, but they'll probably go for one more gold lane ban. I'm wondering if they actually want to go and ban out the Brody. I'm not sure if it's worth the ban, but it's definitely a solid pick.
I think the safer choice might just be to go for a roam ban here. I'm not too sure what roamer, though, would actually fit in for Indonesia, right? Maybe Minotaur could be a good option as well to go for the neutral objective contest, but they end up going for the Moskov ban. That was a big pick that we saw picked up instantly in that Indonesia versus Malaysia match yesterday in the first phase, even with the Roger for Malaysia. So not even utilizing the flex pick of the Roger, but going for that. But the Grok will be left open. This is a signature pick for Keyboy. He gets himself on that Grok. And I guess they're really just trying to see if they can actually utilize the Brody in lane, right? Because there's one thing about the Brody, even though it's great with the Sky Piercer and all these new items, that's a glue pickup, by the way, from Vietnam, but if you're up against a lot of CC, if you're up against people who can actually dive you, it'll be very, very hard as a Brody who cannot really utilize the flexible battle spell choice that we are used to seeing from Natan, Moskov, Roger, even the Claude. All the meta gold laners right now, they have an option to actually go for Purify or even sprint to some of these like Claude over the Flicker. So that adds a lot more flexibility to how they can actually play out that hero in lane and in these team fights. And that's something that Brody can't have. So maybe for Indonesia, they're really just trying to see. That's going to be the Kaja as well for Team Vietnam. This is an interesting draft from Vietnam, right? The Loyi Kaja combo as well. So they're going to be very reliant on using the diversion together with the Kaja to get him into different angles. But even then, Indonesia should still be able to read it out in the early game, at least, when the cooldown is still, massive on that diversion. So Indonesia, big decision to make now. Do they want to go for the safe choice, which is probably the carry, or they want to go for that Brody? Go straight for the early game with the snowballing of the Farsa and the Link. Take the game under their control and start. That's what they go for. That's a Brody.
I was gonna say, man, when you asked, I was gonna say was leaning towards the Brody especially when we saw the glue and the Kaja locked in, because you want to play with the range, like you want to play with that advantage, having that range available to you, and you get that too because honestly, whenever that Tempest Blades or wherever Albert goes to set things up, and even the Feathered Airstrike, like think about how much overloaded damage that is against Vietnam. The Brody should be able to easily just get the shots off, get the marks, and then hopefully, fade away torn apart memory. That's the best part about Brody. It's very, very finesse-like. And so for the lineup for Vietnam, they have a great way to kind of cause chaos with diversion alone. But I think this is a huge game for Nart on the Kaja, because if he's able to lock down the right targets, it doesn't have to be Albert, man. Like, it could actually just even be CW or Sands. If he's able to get the lockdowns with the Divine Judgment and they lose one of those major sources of damage, then the extended team fight will be great here for Vietnam. So let's jump into the game here. Game number 1. Again, it's a best of 3 between Vietnam and Indonesia, both tied for points currently in the standings. And whichever team will get off to a good start. Oh, Nart. Okay, he's going to be fine, actually. So let's jump into the Land of Dawn here. First team to get first blood in the series is going to be off to a good start, securing that slot into the playoffs here as we get a look at both teams starting up. For Zhao on this Fredrin, he's rolling the Concussive Blast. So he's at least on one of those emblems. Oh, look at this. Focus on the top. So they already BMI's out, but has that Concussive Blast. I think this is better for this. The interesting that I want to point out, man, is Nart is on Concussive Blast as well. Usually we see Kajas roll with Focusing Mark because it gives that little extra oomph, to get the damage or get these early kills on. So I'm wondering, they just want to kind of push some of the lanes in, have a little bit of that extra damage, I suppose, and tankiness, dealing with the amount of burst damage that's going to be thrown at this lineup from Vietnam. And you can already see it, right? Both teams kind of just getting their rotations down, setting up. It is going to be the Lithwander already taken here by Albert. He's almost level 4. Zhao should be as well. First items, interesting too, fall into place. You can see some of the difference there. Brody does go ahead. Oh, hold on. He.
All right, Albert trying to go for the dive here. Goes for the Retribution as well and will be able to pick up first blood in the bottom lane. Good job by Lutpi to give Albert that free way into the kill. Meanwhile, up top, Keyboy's going to be traded down, though. Zhao going to get that kill down, and it is going to be equal on the board in the early game. The XP for the roam. But I would say, if we're talking about the Concussive Blast, right, I really feel like for Nart, the idea is he wants to match the clear speed of the Grok plus the Farsa in the mid lane. Try to give the Loyi a little bit more pressure to play with, and also, as we can see here, just get the better clear against Keyboy.
Yeah. So Turtle's up here. Actually, they're both teams getting in position.
Penalty zone. Gonna be able to lock 2 members down. Zhao, though, will be able to get a taunt down onto Albert. Now with the Tempest of Blades, still able to get out. Gets the Blades, and will be able to just dash towards the Turtle once again. Nart, no Divine Judgment just yet. Still level 3, as that's gonna be Keyboy with the Power of Nature, just holding it down. Wild Charge as well. Albert securing Turtle number 1 for Indonesia. Suns deals a bit of damage to Nart. We'll have to respect Nart here. He's about to get that level 4. It turns out, no, he's actually still quite far.
Yeah, he's got a little more time to go here. You saw that too in that exchange. That CW first item was the Sky Piercer. He picked that up. So definitely want to play around at this first item. Yeah, there it is right there. It does get the level 1 boots as well. So with this, I mean, what we just saw too, Albert being able to go in, get that kill, swoop on out, get the turtle, is good for them because he's sitting on a double kill on a Ling. Like, this is the best case scenario you can be on with a hero like Ling, and we know it's a signature on that. So it's up for Vietnam to kind of stop this from getting out of hand, and that's where Nart comes in at this point. You know, and I think it's going to be a little bit tricky on being able to catch Albert. So it might just be finding the target that you can. Oh, here they go.
Good wall charge on the Nart right into the Defiant Blades, and that's going to be a killing spree that Albert picks up. Now on the signature Ling, jumps in with the Finch Poise onto Fugo with the Tempest of Blades as well, gets the knock up, and that's the damage coming in from the Feathered Airstrike from Sans in the mid lane to take Fugo down. Indonesia 4-1.
4-1. 3 kills on Albert. He picked up the Berserker's Fury as well, so he's in full snowball material right now, snowball mode. They're already, what, 3,000 gold ahead with that, and so this early portion of the game, 4 minutes in, they're setting their eyes on possibly a quick game. You can see the idea from Vietnam here on the top lane trying to make a play, but Keyboy is going to spot that out perfectly fine, there to help CW in this exchange if it does break out. And that's what I'm saying. It's so hard because for Vietnam, really the play this entire time is just on Nart. There's not much else that they can do, really, if you think about the initiations, because even with Fugo, he has to, once again, decide on where he wants to put that diversion. It is crucial. He's got good, good damage, especially with the passive with Lui Yi, drops down a rotation, that second skill, but it's still difficult for them because even that, Yandere needs time on the Claude. In comparison to Brody, he just picks up the Corrosive Scythe for the Claude. And when you're going against a CW here, it's tough to deal with that damage. So now with this turtle up here, Vietnam gets in position once again.
Good penalty zone again, lock Joe down. Miwa on the back is going to be the slam, pass on Albert, but he gets the Tempest of Blaze now, goes straight for the turtle, but actually misses out on the Retribution, still able to get the last tick in as Lippy does some damage to the Joe, able to dodge away from the Appraisers. Rat dealing some damage back, and actually taking a kill without actually dying as well here. In the bot side of the map, Lippy outplaying Zhao and the other 2 members, and it seems for Sans, he's really just going to be staying there in the vicinity. Fugo pops into diversion now with the dispersion as well. Up top, CW getting a lot of those stacks down. Oh, last hit turn of our memory, and no, the Sky Piercer cannot take him down just yet, but Albert will, right with the Finch Poise and the Defiant Blade. Fugo going to be caught under the turret with the Feather Airstrike, dodging with the Flicker as Nart walks up together now. Doesn't have the Divine Judgment to really lock anyone down, and Lippy will just be munching on these stacks from Glue, getting all the sustain he needs, and pushing Hehe back again. He just respawned, he just rotated back towards that bot side of the map, and he's already forced down to so low.
My goodness, what a fight. Albert go in to clean up another kill. 5-0-1 already here. Indonesia very dominant.
Again with the Tempest of Blaze, Nart will not be able to survive that one, and now with the Finch Poise, he gets out as well. Yandere trying to go for the Blazing Duet, but a Feather Airstrike deals with Fugo with one last shot from CW2. Indonesia on a roll in this match against Vietnam.
Hey man, like I said, it's tough to catch Albert. He's 6-0-2. He did pick up that Sky Piercer just last item, so we didn't get to see it proc for CW, but for Albert now they have to watch out for both. Vietnam in a very tough situation to be in because you're just seeing them really struggling because everything is being thrown at them at different directions, and that's the tough part about it. And like you mentioned earlier in that turtle fight, Loopy has been on point with these penalty zones, man. Whether it's with the Flicker or not, the combination is there. Yandere,
whoa,
in trouble.
Good prediction too on the battle mirror image there by Sans. Flies in, throws it at the battle mirror image. That's the Sans we know.
Yeah, again, kind of dealing with this whole 360 lineup, I would say, from Indonesia, from Vietnam. Their head has to constantly be on a swivel, trying to find out where Indonesia is coming from. And even with this, they're going to use the diversion. So they find their own placements. Let's see if they can do it.
Nart with the flicker on Divine Judgment, but now cancel out with the wild charge. CW going to be taken down, but they're all going to be stuck in the clump zone. And now the Feather Airstrike deals enough damage with together as Albert and Lutfi swing their hammer. Albert will be able to walk in towards the turtle, getting it down. The Finch poised to re-engage on the Joe, who gets a 3-man taunt, but they're all hitting. They're all taking him down, and his HP bar will not be able to handle that much pressure. Now with one member left standing, running towards the wrong side of the map. It seems for Indonesia, they'll be able to pick up this kill as they say to
So they get him there, and this is just devastating, Mirka. I mean, we're talking 8 minutes in, 10,000 gold ahead for Indonesia, and it looks like Albert just so confident he's gonna go ahead and take this purple away.
Almost getting Fugo, now getting knocked up, so there's a cancel there. Good save by Joe in the bottom lane. Wild charge right into CW with the smooch now, and he doesn't even need to commit a torn apart memory. Just a few basic attacks is enough with the help of that wild charge.
Okay, like I was saying, this is a massive lead right now for Indonesia, and looks like they actually want to just possibly start knocking down these base turrets even before that Lord comes up. It was not a good usage of the diversion. You called it. They used it, they went to the bush in the mid lane, and then they were left to their devices for the rest of the team, and it all just got collapsed on. Like I was saying, man, it's a 360 lineup. You don't know where Indonesia's coming from. So now that they get this Lord here, that could possibly be the Lord. I know it is only the first one, but this could be the Lord that Indonesia uses to end the game early on. We saw both these teams go for 10 to 13-minute games in their previous matchup off stream. Sans?
Gonna be caught, doesn't have the flicker, and will be taken down. Sans with the signature overextension as well, right as they get the Lord. And it will be Sans gets taken out here. Albert picks up a BOD, 12-0-4.
Jeez. That's also just war cry. Like, I don't know. Are you sold on the war cry now? Like, do you think it's a pretty good emblem to pick up here?
Yeah, I've got to say that the war cry is really good, especially considering, on the Ling, when you use the Tempest of Blades. Even before that, I think, just when you use the Finch Poise and then Divine Blades into the front, you already get the proc. So it's very easy on Ling.
Oh, man.
Sans,
3 members. SPA, 3 members having the Sky Piercer. Even Sans wants a part of this, and so they're going to deal with that. This is very tough for Vietnam, not only being down nearly 13,000 gold, now working against the SPA, the Sky Pierce abuse. And so Lord makes its way top side. Vietnam on the defense. Indonesia looks to go in with conceal.
Penalty zone, locking 2 members down. Keyboy still holding on to that wild charge right now. Sans is able to pop the wings by wings. The Divine Judgment, the lock Lutfi down to the back line right now. As that's going to be the base turret taken out. Indonesia still going for this fight. With the slam and the pass combo to the front. And Joe will be able to get the taunt down onto Albert, but now is very, very low. Will still be able to escape with the split as Vietnam get rid of the Lord. But now another wave comes into that mid lane with the bottom lane as well. It seems for Indonesia, they'll just have to be satisfied with 1 base turret.
That's all they get. I'm actually surprised that is all they get in the exchange, given how far ahead Indonesia is right now, and even with the 3 Sky Piercers. But I think it's also just a form of discipline that they're showing for Indonesia right now. With the lead that they have, they probably could have punched it in even further. Hold on. Wild charge.
W with the winner crown actually gets up to Divine Judgment. The torn apart memory takes him out with the help of the Feather Airstrike. Now as Albert goes in towards the back, is very, very low. Needs to be careful. Goes out, escapes. Joe goes in, and that's gonna be the double kill secured by Sans. As now it's gonna be running away with the split. Another chase down up top with the Finch Poise, and Albert will be able to get rid of Joe up top. Now another 1v1 as it's going to be Yandere who tries his best to take Albert down, but he's a bit too slippery. Still with the Finch Poise escaping. Another Feather Airstrike onto Yandere. One last shot should do it with the Sky Piercer, but he's unable to get that final hit. Still, Yandere trying to go against the defense of 5 members sieging down their base. Albert will just dash towards the back, go for it right now, and they're gonna go for a few more kills, a few more hits onto the Vietnam members before they ultimately secure game number 1.
Decisive game here from Indonesia, man. 12,000 gold ahead. It took them a little bit longer than what I thought because with that first Lord push. I was actually expecting Indonesia to end it there with how far ahead they were, and then 3 Sky Piercers. But, for Vietnam, there's a lot. I feel like that their lineup just was not able to hang with the pressure, the speed that Indonesia was at for this one. And like I was saying before we went into the matchup here, Mirko, I was like, you know what? There is like Vietnam's play style looks like it would be able to be similar, at least match up against Indonesia. This game was different though, because the lineup is a little bit slower, you know, and like when you look at Indonesia's lineup, and even if you just see a Ling, like, you know, the idea is to snowball, and I mean, anytime an assassin gets picked up, like that's the general idea. But then they paired it up with Sands on the Farsa, and they had a Brody. So, I mean, the Brody takes a little bit longer, but traditionally I would say Brody is like, he's like a 2-item marksman. Like, once you have probably 2 items, you're already actually quite a bit of a threat in comparison to the Claude, for example, where you need many more items, you need a lot more time. But, you know, late game, it's again, it's not up to CW just to pump out all the damage, because of the fact that you have a Ling and a Farsa already that covers so much damage potential from start to mid game. And that's what we saw here as we take a look at the highlights, right? Albert came out swinging is an understatement. The guy was just everywhere that he needed to be. He ends up eventually just snowballing out of control on this Ling. So for all you Albert fans that wanted to see him play this Ling, now you get to see it on stream, and man, was it a dominating game. And also, that was just in part to the amazing setup potential from Loopy and Keyboy as usual. These guys got all the sets, as you see from the wild charge, that they needed. Really good usage of just even the Guardian's Barrier a lot of times to make it even more difficult like that to get out of, you know, any of these aggressive plays from Indonesia early on. Again, this is only 3 minutes to the 5-minute mark. And this, you know, the setups that Keyboy and Loopy were doing, like, look at Loopy. He's going 1v3 for the most part, takes out a kill and stays alive. That's why Tarizla right now, I feel like, is probably going to be maybe the #1 pick for the XP lane, if not the second pick, because he's just massive right now. And I don't know if it's just, you know, some of the changes with the items, but just Tarizla was great before, and now he's even better. And so teams are definitely going to have to look out for that. With this, again, like I said, it just took too long for Vietnam's lineup to really like pull together in a game that is against its time that they're both after, but with different timings and power spikes. Indonesia just knew theirs, which was really in the early game. And even this fight, man, they just get smashed here, and great placements time and time again from Sans with the feathered airstrike, able to find the right targets, even on the BMI. Really well placed on finding that. And, you know, at this point, like I said, it's in full snowball territory. He really just trying to run away, but he gets taken out here, and there wasn't much he could do on the glue. I didn't feel the impact of the glue at all in this game, just because of the fact that it got way too out of control, where you're the tanky guy. You know, you and Fredrin are the ones that are supposed to go and start some of these fights or get to the back line, but how can you when you're getting blown up like this? And we're talking about Sky Piercer as well. It wasn't Sky Piercer was a first item for CW, but that was pretty much it. You know, it took Albert picked it up, I think, second or third item, and then Sans gets it later on. So for the most part, these tanky heroes, you couldn't really use them the way they needed to be in comparison to Lutfi and Keyboy. You know, they had way more value out of the tanks they had because they just scaled up better too, and quicker with the snowball that they had. So for Vietnam, with a lineup like this, they definitely need to cover more grounds in terms of that early game. There was a lot here for them for that late game. And we see this once again. This was interesting because they forced this fight, and a good response from Keyboy to go ahead and collapse down and start this all up. But, you know, in the mid lane, this is, where they diversion out of here? No, that was earlier. So, you know, again, team fight after team fight, you can already see massive leads for Indonesia, and for Vietnam not able to withstand that pressure, that momentum that was built up here. You still got to go, you know, you got to see all the team fights that unfolded between them, but MVP is probably going to be Albert, you know, on this Ling. I don't know if you agree with that or change it, but here, let's go ahead and look at it. Yep, player of the match, MVP for match #1, Albert, 13-0-5. This is a nearly, I would say, every Ling player's dream to have a game like this, especially when you get to snowball like crazy.
For sure. I think, you know, Albert being the MVP here is a no-brainer. He was 13-0-5. He took the game to his own hands. I think after the first 3 kills that he got in the game, and around the turtles as well, he was perfect, securing every single neutral objective on the Ling. You'd expect him to get 3 kills early, but I don't think you would expect him to out-retrade, to outtake the Fredrin on the neutral objectives, especially considering there's a Kaja on the enemy team. But I do want to talk a little bit about that Kaja pick, Naisu. It definitely did feel like there were too many targets to go for, kinda.
Yeah.
Like you said, right, in the draft, the Kaja could go for Sans, could go for CW over Albert. And again, maybe the fact that, you could go for all these members makes it so that it's just very, very confusing for him. He doesn't know who to go for in the end, and they have had those countermeasures. I think after a while of trying to go for Albert but not being able to catch Albert, after a while of going for Sans and not being able to go for Sans, he decided to go for CW. And he was able to get that, I think, in the second turtle, around the second turtle. Good Divine Judgment with the flicker to catch CW, but then that's why we saw the adjustment from CW. Instead of the normal Wind of Nature or a Rose Gold Meteor, he decided to go for the Winter Crown. That is now Adaptive Attack. So yeah, he can still get the value out of that Adaptive Attack to go for physical, and while simultaneously also getting that suppression down, getting an untargetable item used up so that he can actually escape from the Divine Judgment. And that's actually what we get to see. Because he popped into Winter Crown and Nard popped, tapped on the Divine Judgment. The Divine Judgment went to Lutpi, I think it was. And very, very good baits, very good adjustment from Team Indonesia in this game throughout, up against that Kaja. After some of the successes that we saw from the Kaja, it responded to it almost instantaneously, right? So maybe something like a Kaja with the Loyi, it doesn't work as well anymore. Because we were already talking about, how we are doubting the Loyi pick. We're doubting how prio Loyi is in this meta. With the chip too, to be fair. But the chip did get banned. The Loyi didn't, and maybe that's why they didn't ban it. Maybe that's why now they're actually banning the Roger over the Loyi. You're so limited now on the Loyi. It just feels like that creative diversion is no longer creative. It becomes super easy to read. And even if you pull off 1-2 good diversion plays, send the Kaja back. Once you do that, and if you don't get the big play, you're done, right? The diversion is going to be out for such a long time. And I think for the Loyi as well, at this point, maybe we might see like a fleeting time Loyi. Maybe they might try to go for some additional cooldown on that big ultimate. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like the Loyi has been getting a lot of success. Sans tried to pull it off yesterday. Didn't work out. Now today, it's Vietnam would try to pull off the Loyi, and it still didn't work out.
Times are changing, and like I said, it's
for the better.
Good.
I hate Loyi.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's good for me. I'm happy with the way things have shifted. I'm glad that at least the mid lane, for the most part, too. Even looking at some of the off-stream games, there's still good variations for mid lane. I mean, like yesterday, we even saw the mid Terizla, which threw me off, right? But yeah, I think there's still a lot of good variation and flexibility that can happen in the mid lane. And for the longest time, it was just, Loyi Novaria, and maybe, a different hero here and there. But so far, I think even from the African qualifiers, now here for Asian, we've seen a good mix of different heroes in the mid lane, and it's refreshing. I think Loyi had her moments in her time, and she can definitely still fit in some compositions. It's just she's not as OP now because of the way that diversion works, and you really have to be careful in using that. So, and I think it's a good thing you pointed it out, like the combination of Loyi with the Kaja. In this, you lack the damage because for one, Loyi, we know she can actually do pretty decent damage early with her passive and everything, and dropping rotations and getting those the yin and yang combinations off. But the problem with this is, like you said, at some point, especially when the radiant armor started to come online, you lose so much damage in comparison to a Farsa combination. Like Farsa alone, her damage is pretty good throughout the entirety of the game. And I couldn't recall on exactly the build path that Sans went, but I love the magic items right now. Like I love the fact too that even with the glowing wand, it has that built-in Necklace of Durance passive now in it. You have the Wishing Lantern, which we got a glimpse of yesterday. But there's still a lot of the same paths that some of these heroes are taking, and it's just, for Loyi to be most effective, you need to be utilizing the utility she brings to a team. And so far, it seems like that was the biggest hit she took was the fact that she could use that diversion that way. So I think teams will slowly start to feel this. They'll really like adjust to it. And this opens up more room for diversity in the mid lane anyways. I know we also still see a lot of Lilia pop up, which still is a great hero to put there. We actually saw some Gourds pop up here throughout the tournament. So I think, you know, overall, the next shakeup we need to see happen is also the XP lane. I was saying before the patch that I love the XP lane because we did see quite a diverse range of heroes picked up, but man, to be honest, so far for IESF, it's been the Yuzhongs and the Terizlas, and that's about it. There's been a couple maybe here or there changes, but I think, you know, you're seeing just how strong the XP lane heroes are that are commonly picked up, which is Yuzhong and Terizla, and it's still the same though. Like Miracle, I would still say it's still XP lane is probably still the most impactful lane for me right now, unless we get to a situation where it's like the assassin jungles just kind of get out of control with like this new patch. I'm not sure if it'll get to that point though.
I think there's a case to be made for the jungle though, right? Because I mean, looking at the Lings that we've been seeing, the Rogers as well, even to a certain point, to a certain extent, the Bakshas as well. The fact that you're able to dictate the game so early on, maybe, you know, the jungle could take the role back of the most impactful role in MLBB. Because for the longest time, it has always. I think it's got to be like what, M3, maybe M3, around M3, and then M4 we still saw like a few junglers taking the game into their own hands, but I mean, like, you know, Kyrie. But after that, really, the jungle became a retry only kind of lane, you know, retry only kind of role where you're there specifically to go for retries, to Lord dance, and that's it. And I love the change.
Get that retry.
Exactly. Hold that Lord, LDE, they enjoy those Lord dances, right? And a bit too much, I feel, you know, they enjoy those Lord dances a bit too much. But now with the assassins coming down with the damage dealers as well, I'm very, very curious to see how the meta actually shifts again. Because so far, it seems like we're only seeing the Lings, the Rogers in the jungle as assassins. You know, we have seen Lancelot from here, like time to time. I think Ken was able to pull off the Lancelot, but again, he lost on that. Albert tried the Hayabusa, lost on that pick as well. So I wonder if some other assassins can actually make their way into the jungle and be super prio too. Because so far it's just two picks that are really prio that you can make work as a first phase pick. That's crazy. Assassin first phase, damage dealer jungle first phase. It's something we haven't heard since what, M3 it has to be, right? That was the last time we saw the assassins really fully prio, and even the marksmen in the jungle with the Roger too. But yeah, now that there are some changes, I really hope that they maybe figure out something, maybe like a Granger to come back in the meta with the burst. The Sky Piercer should be pretty good on the Granger, right? Especially with the Death Sonata. The fact that you can have the Sky Piercer with that kind of range as well. Very interesting
Granger
stuff.
Jungle?
Granger Jungle, yeah. I'm talking about Granger Jungle. We saw Granger Jungle, I think, a couple of times already. Not in this tournament, but, you know, in some other tournaments, the Granger Jungle has been popping up. It's still very, very easy to pick off in the early game, very vulnerable, and I get to see why. But maybe if you can get winning lanes in mid and XP, or mid or gold lane, you know, 2 winning lanes, maybe it sets up for a pretty good Granger pick.
I almost feel like we're going to see a very well-known player from North America maybe bring it out in one of the tournaments in the future here coming up. But, I hope to see it because, you know, I am all for jungle becoming that kind of role again that is not just retributions, like you said. You know, it's not just that role that, you know, stick them there, deal with the Lord, get the retribution. Because I think it changes the path of the game, of course, like when the jungles can be like this, like we just saw from Albert. But so far from even the tankier jungles that we've seen, like the Fredrins, like the Bakshas, you know, they actually, the pacing of the game isn't so different, you know? I mean, when it is utility, I can't recall when the last time we've seen really like tank for tank jungles though go to head to head. It's usually been one utility versus one assassin so far through ISF. So we'll see if that changes here. Draft though for game number 2. Indonesia going to be on that blue side, so they will get that first pick. Vietnam here on the red this time around. Bans coming out. I'm wondering if Vietnam wants to ban the Ling. Like, you know, they ban the chip. That's kind of what we used to see, I would say, is teams ban the chip. So they go for the Barretts. So I wonder what the game plan is for Vietnam. After a game like that, and very, you know, being very one-sided there, you've got to have an idea of, number one, I would think, I don't want to play against Albert's Ling. You know, we can't do that because also, okay, Angela's banned out. So Indonesia is the one to ban it out. And we'll see if this last one is that respect ban towards Ling. Even if it is, what do you think's open here for Indonesia in the first pick?
I think the Roger's going to be up for grabs. They go for the Ling ban, but it does leave the Roger up for grabs. And it should be a pick for Indonesia. Both Albert and CW play the Roger really, really well. It's also just a really, really good flex pick. Unless they want to try the Lo Yi again, right? Maybe it didn't work out against Malaysia, but maybe it'll work out against Vietnam. I don't know. I don't know if they even want to go for the global pressure of that Lo Yi. I think a few times before the patch, at least, we saw that the Moskov was super prio as first pick as well, but I'm not too sure if Indonesia actually want to go for that. I think the safer choice has still got to be the Roger. That's the safest choice you can go for. Or maybe, you know, you were already talking about how the XP is very impactful. Maybe go for something like a Terizla, but they go for the Harith, which is something that's super prio as well. I think has lost a bit of prio since the patch. It's not as crazy as it was before, but it's still a really good pick in the gold lane. You get the snowball really quick in the game, especially when you get level 4. Once you get level 4, it almost seems like, you know, I don't think any gold laner is really able to go 1v1, duel
1v1,
against the Harith. Maybe the Esmeralda, if we do get to see an Esmeralda like we saw yesterday, but it's going to be the Fredrin and the Roger, so removing the potential of the flex instantly, putting the Roger into the gold lane up against a Harith. Roger wants to win the lane, Harith does the same thing, and I think does the same thing a bit better, at least for the early phase, especially after level 4, so Vietnam, an interesting choice to go for.
You know, when you're talking about the Harith here, it makes me think of yesterday where Al was playing that Harith, and he was able to really just kind of keep himself in the side lane, and what ended up helping them win that game and push it was the fact that, yeah, you couldn't 1v1 him. You know, eventually, especially 30 minutes into the game, Harith just gets to a point where it's so tough to 1v1 actually from level 4, but even late game, you kind of have to send at least 2 people to kind of deal with Harith unless, you know, you're able to eat through those shields, which is, like you mentioned, the Esmeralda would be great. But wow, Indonesia. Okay, on the response here, they're gonna go ahead and give their chance at the Lo Yi. So let's see how they utilize this pick this time around, and also the Noland, who has so far done pretty decently, you know, in the way things are kind of shaping up, just like we saw from Takiza yesterday, right? Takiza is the one that played the Nolan, if I remember right. We saw the Nolan come out with some success, and I think it was also with a combination of a Nolan and a Harith, if I remember right from yesterday. So, and then the last pick for the first phase for Vietnam, they're going to pick up the Terizla this time around, placing that in the XP lane. So they might, I don't know, maybe just deal with the Yu Zhong if it slips through, unless they ban it out. That looks like, yeah, that's Tigreal, right? Tigreal being banned out.
All right, Tigreal ban. All right, so we're really respecting Keyboy here with the Tigreal ban, but we haven't really seen Tigreal come out a lot here. I guess anticipating maybe the way that he could use the Tigreal with the Lo Yi to find those creative angles, you know, with the flanks. I guess I could definitely see that as well, but maybe for Indonesia, they might be going for just a standard Grok as well. I think that would still work out. It's a good Terizla pick, by the way, for Vietnam, right? The fact that they picked it up, it's a good deny away from Indonesia because they really need someone tanky in the XP lane now that they have technically 3 damage dealers in their composition. Novaria ban to try to deny that scouting potential of that Astral Echo, especially when you want to use the Lo Yi to get these angles, to get these flanks. You want to take away that Novaria because I think for the Novaria, every single ability, could be used to actually scout out. Put the Astral Meteor down to get vision of the bush. You can throw out the Astral Recall, second part of it, the Astral Sphere, and you can get vision across and Astral Echo as well. The Grok will be banned out. I was expecting the Grok for Indonesia, and it's a good read by Vietnam to take that pick up because it feels like with the Fredrin even, right? It doesn't really matter if the Fredrin is better at contesting these neutral objectives than any of the assassins that's picked up by Indonesia if there's a Grok in the hands of Indonesia. Because then they'll be able to just utilize that wild charge CC around the walls, get that CC down on the Fredrin, and it basically becomes a full 100-0. No 50-50 at all for the Retribution. Full easy retry for whoever the jungle is, and it's gonna be the Valentina ban. So again, also respecting the fact that maybe they want to be going for these big ults. I think the Minotaur might show up now because the Valentina, as of right now, the 3 picks that we have for Indonesia, there's no real pick that actually warrants, you know, the Valentina ban. Maybe the Diversion, but even then, we don't see a lot of Valentinas go for the Diversion anyway. So maybe they're just going for some big ults in the second phase. Maybe an Arlet and a Minotaur. I think both those could work.
Yeah. I was trying to think here too for Indonesia, maybe the Kaja or Edith Rome also. I'm not sure, but Kaja, like this is, if it is Kaja, they could be just a complete pickoff, kind of pickoff-esque lineup. I know we already shared our thoughts about Kaja with a Lo Yi though, and so it might be, you know, might not be something they want to do, but if it is locked in, then we get to see Indonesia try that combination this time around. Another thing I could think of is, of course, the Edith Rome that has popped up a couple times, and again, it really, like, they're so overloaded on magic damage right now, and we saw what kind of happens to teams that do this before. So I think, you know, you kind of have to take that into consideration. So it looks like the Arlot is going to be picked up. That's also a good source of physical damage, but it's mostly that final slash that you can use. And, you know, if you're just trying to sweep them into the Zaman Force, that might be a game plan already. Wow. Okay, interesting that a Guinevere is going to get picked up here, and I'm assuming that is going in the XP lane to, unless it's going to be Rome. Like, Arlot could go XP lane as well. Who does better against the Terizla here, do you think?
I think the Arlet definitely needs to go to XP, right? The Guinevere XP, though it can work, I'm more of a fan of the Guinevere as Rome compared to XP, but that's going to be the Phoveus as well, and that's a great pick by Vietnam. So many dashes from Indonesia. Every single one of them can actually dash, except for the Lo Yi. So incredible value here as the last pick comes into the XP lane. And oh wow, I'm really impressed with the Phoveus pick. We don't get to see Phoveus a whole lot, and we finally get to see him here. We usually see him even in the mid lane, and I think that's what they're gonna do. The Phoveus will be in the mid lane for Fugo, not on the XP. It's gonna be Hehe still on that Terizla. All right. What do you think, Naisu? Do you think the Phoveus is better as an XP laner or a mid laner?
I think for this, mid lane, because you want to be rotating wherever the Nolan is. And like, so you want to be able to, you know, you want to be able to join those fights, those early skirmishes, and possibly once you have the demonic force available, like play around that. So I don't know. It's tough to say, but I think this is better. You know, it does fit with this lineup, and mid lane is the way to go here. I think before, actually, no, even with, like, thinking some of the major teams, I think it just depends on what the lineup's going to be. He works great in XP and mid. So with that, let's find out exactly how it's going to be executed in this land of Dawn. Game number 2 here. It's match point for Indonesia, looking out to close out the series against Vietnam. And again, remember, they are tied for points. Hold on. It looks like, I'm not sure if that's going to result in anything, but they were pretty low there as they got to the lanes here. As we take a look at the junglers getting set up, Albert already rotating in, gets that level 2, and you can see it, right? Again, Vietnam needs to even out the series here, get to a game 3, because they're tied in the standings. You guys, real quick, can also check out the standings on IESF.gg to stay updated with everything happening. Now, as we take a look even at the emblems here, nothing crazy that sticks out except for Fugo. He's got the war cry on the Phoveus. So this is going to be the first time that we actually see this. Well, first time in for a pick for Phoveus in general, but then the war cry emblem on top of the Phoveus pick. I'm wondering how this is going to work out. An extra 8% damage for a Phoveus, especially when he has demonic force. I feel like that could be kind of scary. Could be tough to deal with, plus the fact that Yandere has it as well. This is, you know, not so new. We have seen Rogers play with this emblem now at this point, and it works out. So it's a lot of extra damage they could play around here.
For sure. And the fact that they're going to go for the war cry means that they want to go for the prolonged fight. They want to try to out-sustain Indonesia in these skirmishes. Albert jumping in forward, not able to get the fracture down, so he's going to hold off onto that Keyboy, just relieving some of the pressure that Yandere has been able to put down onto CW in this gold lane, and will be able to help CW to shove this. But so far, Vietnam in the early game, they're doing a pretty good job. I think as long as Fugo is able to clear up and get to level 4 before the turtle, this is going to be a very, very good early fight for Vietnam.
You know what I'm wondering too here, Mirko, is like, what is the build path of this Phoveus in the mid? Because, you know, with things changing, he can do quite a bit of damage with the current item, so they do get a flicker out from Loot Beast all before this first turtle, this first objective take does come, but they do get these level 4s that are crucial for the fight. So even with the flicker down, Loopy might still just try to get a play. It looks like Keyboy's trying to get that level 4 as well, so that he can contribute to this fight. But right now, they're going to control this side of the turtle. Fugo quite low. Looks like he's going to be fine, but now fighting for the turtle.
Yeah, Lippy has the final slash, can go for it, jumps in for the Vengeance as well, and that's gonna be the penalty on lock Albert down, but good final slash comboed in with the Retribution. Now that's gonna be the Spatial Migration and the Violet Requiem locked down together to give Albert some space to go for the Fracture and pick up a double kill on top of the Turtle.
Hey, you said, oh, I was going to say, I thought Yandere did survive. And I was going to say, good job surviving against CW using the Zaman Force under the turret. Eventually goes down. Zhao gone too.
Good Fracture too, and now Albert will be able to use the dash, but now is going to try to bait Fugo into the turret. I'm not sure if Fugo wants to take this, and he does with the Demonic Force. Gets pulled way too far away from his turret. Is forced to use the Purify. Now, it might be the re-engage from Albert, catching Fugo, overextending. And Fugo has lost the entire minion wave on top of that, right? He's going to be so behind in gold.
I'm not sure, like, if he was just like, oops, you know, if that was an oops because he goes too far.
It was like multiple oopses.
Yeah, I would have stopped 2 before he even got there. But, you know, it's unfortunate because even looking at the gold, he's already fallen quite behind Sands. 700 gold already, and this is a 5-0 lead now for Indonesia, very similar to what we saw in the previous game. So Vietnam struggling, and look at this, invading that purple buff.
Razor's Wrath and Retribution combo together. Violet Requiem, though. My goodness, Nart gonna be knocked up straight into the Fracture and a Dispersion. Now it's gonna be Lupiu because it's gonna be combat. A Diversion gets placed down, and Sans will be able to escape. Keyboy next to the chopping blocks. They go for the chase, a Demonic Force as well. But Keyboy will be able to enter again onto the Spatial Migration, getting Joe knocked up. CW rotating back again as Joe goes over the top, but CW has rotated, goes over to Synchro Fission, and it's gonna be Hehe completely isolated, alone. The other members went back. And the Terizla will be taken out 7-1 as Joe is still looking for an aggressive maneuver here into the enemy jungle. Has a Retribution as well, but it seems Albert will still be able to pick it up for himself. That 2-level lead coming in handy for the Retri battle.
I'm so, you know, it's hold on, it's mid lane. I don't think Nart?
Again, the Vengeance resets with a Dispersion, the final slash. Nart gonna be displaced and taken out by the Vengeance, and now Joe can't even go and utilize that Retri advantage that he got from the purple buff invade. Albert's just gonna pick it up for free, no Retri needed, and they're gonna plow through the next engage here onto the enemy jungle. Fugo caught but has the Purify, and it seems for Indonesia they have a 5,000 gold lead already. The Diversion is going to be used down to the bottom lane to go for a flank, and that's going to be the sandwich. Albert picking up the kill together with the rest of the team as Lutpi is even winning up against the Terizla now in the lane.
Yeah, this is very punishing with what Indonesia is doing to Vietnam, not giving them the chance to breathe. Even earlier, it looked good for Vietnam when they were starting to fight back and they caught a couple, but then, oh, hold on, Nart, again, oh my goodness. The burst from Albert is just too much. He's 7-0-1.
Final slash, Synchro Vision right into the stacks. Albert, what triple kill! And now he's gonna go for more. The Maniac waiting for him, and that's gonna be the Spatial Migration to knock him up to give the Maniac over to Albert on a silver platter. The Diversion into the bottom lane, perhaps a hut for the Savage. They don't know where Yandere is, and he will be able to recall in time, denying that Savage. But man, Indonesia, 6 minutes in, 13-1, complete dominance.
Complete dominance. Look at the damage that Albert is doing on this Nolan. 31,000 damage mid lane.
Nart again not having a good time, not even given the chance to use the Primal Wrath. The CW jumps in forward, does have the Purify now, will be able to get locked down by the penalty zone, but that's going to be the Demonic Force munching onto Keyboy's HP bar, as that will be Keyboy falling down. Lippy with Vengeance, now with the Sun as well, trying to bait out some of these Demonic Forces, and he's going to get the Purify, but will not be able to survive in that skirmish. Albert just comes in, takes him down, and wants to go for more. You gotta respect this Fracture again. Albert takes the double, punishes an overstaying.
My God, Gennart all having a hard time here against Albert. 12-0-1. We saw the 31,000 damage earlier. I'm wondering what he's at now. It's got to be 40,000 plus, because my God, we thought the Ling was good. Look at the Nolan. Look at the moves, right? And for Vietnam, this is tough. This is more than a tough. This is dire. We're 7 minutes in. They're 10,000 gold behind, and that's a turtle. You're not going to see any of your buffs. You're not going to see any side of your jungle. And even with this lineup, oh, again.
Oh, I can't even say it was a Spatial Migration. He just disappeared. Nart, 0-6-0. This Edith. It's supposed to be a sustainable pick. You know, it's supposed to be a pick that can allow you to re-engage, but I guess when you get bursted down like that and the diversion gets placed up top, Yandere, oh no, you gotta start running, buddy. Albert is coming down now. He has the passive and the basic attack, and he won't even utilize all. Did he get the fracture? I don't even know if he got the fracture there. Is it on that short of a cooldown?
I think so. Look at the items. He's also got the Sky Piercer. He's got the Hunter Strike. He's got the Malefic Roar, man. It's just, you're seeing even the tankiest members of Vietnam just get deleted in an instance. And now the Sea Halberd to go ahead and take care of some of the sustainability. Not even sure if that Sea Halberd was needed or if it's overkill, but they'll get these tier 2 turrets down. Indonesia is just waiting for the Lord. They're still a whole minute away from it spawning, so they're going to go and get these shields. I'm not sure if they actually continue to like force a fight possibly against Vietnam, but right now Vietnam doesn't have much that they can do other than just watch their base start to crumble here. And it looks like you have to keep an eye on Keyboy. Oh,
start into the, oh my god, the final slash into the Violet Requiem. Well played, Indonesia. Lutpi and Keyboy is working that synergy together. Penalty zone, locking Keyboy and Sans there, but he has the Purifies. Yandere just gets bursted down, I think, by Albert on the fracture. And now again, it's Hehe isolated all alone with the rest of the members having to flee from the fracture. CW dashing forward, still has his Mon Force as well. It's gonna be Lutpi with the final slash again, connecting on a 2, forcing the Purify out as Nard finally gets the Primal Wrath, but not for long. It's just to survive for one last, you know, bit of damage from CW to take him down. Yandere, Joe, and Fugo on the defense. Albert, level 15, jumping in fracture. Oh my goodness. Fugo disappearing again. The assassin is assassinating anyone. And then Keyboy with a spatial migration. Get the Violet Requiem too. And that's the combo together with the dispersion. Indonesia gonna get things done before the 10th minute of the game.
Holy moly. Is all I can say from seeing that game at 24-2, a massive game for Indonesia. I don't know what happened yesterday. I feel like they felt a certain way and they came here, and Vietnam had to deal with that just built up power from Indonesia, man. I don't know. Every single lane, it looked like they were just on point. Albert, I don't even know what the heck his KDA was for this series alone. Like, this game.
Put those stats up, man. Get those stats up, right?
13-0-1. Earlier, he was what, 12-0-1 or something like that?
13-0, I think, game one, right?
13-0. My goodness. What do you even break down from that point? And now, you know, we're going to have to take a look here at the highlights, of course, because this is just going to be a highlight reel that we're going to see from Indonesia. Just like in the first game that they had, man, Vietnam never really had the opportunity to find a breather here. Like, from the start, I mean, look at this. And it was such a good combination, too, with having Keyboy on that Guinevere. We saw that, you know, time and time again, landing those spatial migrations. But honestly, when you're going against this type of damage on Albert with this Nolan, what do you do? Like, how do you deal with this? And this, I mean, Fugo, like, this makes sense. Phoveus, you have a Nolan across from you. In theory, it should work really well. You're dealing with those dashes. But then this overextension, I mean, it was already 4-0. And there was already 2,000-3,000 gold ahead. So even with that, again, things already fell apart. And you'll see multiple setups once again from Keyboy on this Guinevere. And even for Lutpi, the final slashes were great. And really, as we go through the highlights, there's only maybe 1 or 2 instances where we see Vietnam actually kind of have an upper hand in the fight. This might be one of them, if I recall. They actually fight back here, and it looks like they're going to be okay. I'm not sure if this is, but it's one of those instances where they fight back in the buff territory, and then they overextend again and keep losing the fight. So it was just tough for them to really kind of deal with here. Vietnam at this point, you know, 6 minutes in, you're so far behind, man. And it's one of those things where, like, if it's a big snowball down a hill and you try to just stop it with 2 hands, you're probably going to get crushed. And we saw that time and time again, trying to fight this fight, and there wasn't anything they could do. I mean, even if you think about it, even if Vietnam was able to take out, let's say, who's the easiest one? Maybe Sans? Maybe?
Yeah, that's the easiest one.
That would probably be the easiest. I don't know, but Albert, it didn't matter because just the amount of damage he's pumping out on this Nolan. I haven't seen personally a Nolan this strong or this much of a threat, especially now that we factor in the whole Sky Piercer item. you see just how often they delete these tanky heroes from Vietnam. And maybe part of this, again, is the fact that they just had this kind of lead. I mean, a great final slash. You're going to see Keyboy land a multiple member knock up with the spatial migration towards the end as well. And, you know, look at that. This is automatic death. I mean, Nart had a terrible time on this Edith. He just, oh, there it is. That was beautiful, by the way, for Keyboy. But it was tough because Nart was the person trying to find the setups for them. And on the Edith, he just couldn't, right? I mean, there was no breathing room even for your tanks to move around the map. And talk about, I don't know if this, I think this is probably one of our games with the most lead that we've seen from one team. And again, MVP of the match for game number 2 is Albert at 16-0-3. My God, I don't know what else to say about Albert here, man.
Dude, the only thing incomplete about this, you know, stat sheet is his itemization, right? He could have gone to BOD. So for Albert, man, you could have done better, man. I don't know what he was doing the entire game, right? Like, how could you not build the BOD? I'm joking, obviously. 58,000 damage dealt, 16 kills in a 9-minute game. Usually you see that kind of stat for a team to have 16 kills. Yeah. This is a single player getting 16 kills in 9 minutes. The Nolan wasn't farming creeps in the jungle. Albert was farming heroes everywhere and anywhere, anytime, any place. The man knows what aggression is. At this point, in this game particularly, it feels like he is just aggression, you know? If you read Albert the wrong way, it'll probably just be aggression. I don't know how you'll read it, you know, you gotta be kind of dyslexic to do that, but still, aggression is probably, maybe his middle name, Albert Aggression Nelson, right?
It could be, but, you know, I hope when we get to maybe speak to one of them. Maybe we get a chance to talk to Albert on the interview, because
I really hope so.
I gotta ask him, man. And I don't even know, like, if this is just the Nolan plus the Ling. Are these his best? Like, are the best current picks for him right now, or is it just like they knew that this was the way to go because of the snowball potential with both those heroes? Because I know that, I mean, Albert at least his most signature would be the Ling, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, the way that he played even the Nolan, like, this is that territory where it's just like, man, it's the threat that Albert has on any of these assassins that are currently picked up in the meta that is forming here. It's quite scary, and I'm trying to think about what some of the teams out there can do against this kind of snowball, because, like I was saying in the highlights, man, I don't recall a time that we have seen this kind of dominance. Like, maybe in one of the women's games, if you recall back then, but, you know, This is different because it's also just, you know, what is it, 24-2? It was a quick game. The amount of damage that Albert had even before they ended it, remember, was like 31,000 damage. That was like almost all the members from Vietnam combined. And so, like, what do you do against these kind of very fast snowballing heroes that will lock in these kind of items, especially the Sky Piercer? When he locked in the Sky Piercer, it was almost like there was no chance for these tanks. And maybe part of that is some of the build paths that go on. It makes me think about the future, like, metas that are going to be forming. How do the tanks, how do the roams out there deal with these changes? Because when I'm watching this kind of unfold, I don't know the answer to that, man. As someone who plays roam, like, in my own games, like, I actually, you know, I haven't dealt with something like this kind of snowball get out of control, but, like, makes me think, like, how do you stop this? Or, you know how before, even in different leagues, we see some amazing comebacks, like just crazy defenses. Is that even possible right now with something like this, with this type of snowball potential?
Technically, I feel like the answer to your question was already answered by a different team yesterday, right? Indonesia's aggression can be answered by Malaysian aggression. We saw that yesterday. We can see maybe that in the future, maybe if we get the matchup again, Indonesia versus Malaysia, you know, that both these teams will just be fighting for that snowball. But I get your idea right now, right? It's really tough to actually counter that kind of snowball, but I think based on the data that we have, based on the matches that we've watched, the easiest way to say that, you know, one style that can counter that aggression has got to be, you got to fight fire with fire. You got to fight aggression with aggression. You got to try to get your own snowball before that snowball hits. And yeah, it is going to be very risky. Technically going to be a bit of a gamble in the early game. But it worked for Malaysia yesterday. We'll see if Indonesia can continue this run, you know, now with the momentum in their hands.
Well, we're going to find out. Let's go ahead, and I think we are ready for the interview. We're going to invite Albert, actually, to come talk to us for the interview. Ring, ring. Albert, hello. Can you hear us? Hold on. I always have to unmute this. You can hear us. Great.
Hello.
Albert, congratulations. By the way, very dominant series. 2-0. I'm going to ask you right off the bat, man. How did you feel about both your games? Insane KDA, I think you had a 13-0 and then a 16-0. The Ling and Nolan, how does it feel to be in the current meta where assassins seem to be rising once again?
I think it's just it's because the enemy is not that strong. Yes. And
Okay,
we
so-
just explore the new patch, right?
Yep.
Because it's
Let's see.
Awesome.
There you go.
They're scary, man. Mirko, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So Albert, a quick question, right? I mean, with your dominant performance today, you said the enemy is maybe for Vietnam not that strong, but I would want to ask you personally, what happened yesterday up against Malaysia, right? Do you want to share some insights? Did you guys make some mistakes, or were you just not ready to go up against Malaysia? What was it?
I think Malaysia just he's improved a lot. Malaysian team, all their team improve a lot, and because the representative is SRG, right, from SRG, the champions of MPL Malaysia also.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why they so strong now.
Awesome. Yeah, I think there's a lot of teams, a lot of regions and nations that are getting a lot better. Albert, last question. Is there a team you're looking forward to facing off? Is it like a rematch against Malaysia eventually that you're after?
I think I want to fight against Malaysia again because I hope we can get our revenge to Malaysian team.
Awesome.
There you go.
Great. Albert, thank you so much. Congratulations again on the very dominant
Thank
sweep,
you, Albert.
and best of luck to you guys in the rest of the games. Take care.
Thank you.
Good luck, bro.
Bye.
There we go, man.
There you go, man.
So,
Yeah.
that's from Albert himself, of course. His thoughts also on Vietnam, and they want the rematch against Malaysia.
As expected, for Indonesia, I think at this point, if they suffer any losses, they want to get that vengeance, right? They want to avenge their loss later on. And so far, I think with how the group is shaping up, they are going to be coming out second in this group, unless later on maybe Malaysia loses to another team. But no, it's been confirmed. If you guys want to check it out yourself, IESF.gg. Again, Malaysia now are 3-0. They have won every single game, every single match possible in their groups, and it doesn't seem like they didn't drop a single game. This is another invincible run for that roster. We know, throughout the season, I think for SRG, that team in particular, they've been going on an invincible run. And even here in IESF, they're continuing that invincible run. Very impressive stuff. But, Naisu, I was for a second there thinking, okay, is he going to ask for a translation, right? Because a lot of times when we get Indonesian players and I'm here, they'll always just be like, all right, you know what? Mirko's here anyways. Can you just speak Indo to me and just translate some of these questions and translate my answer? But dude, Albert's saying Malaysia improved a lot. I'll say you've improved a lot as well. His English got way better, man. Maybe he's just been practicing with Yeb and Kyrie in the team, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say I was surprised because I was expecting. I've seen it before, but big props to Albert, of course. The English was great, and
shout out to Albert.
Just shout out to Albert, just as good as the gameplay.
Maybe he can join us later on the desk.
Oh, maybe he could, man. Maybe he could be a guest for us. Very, very good game. And like you mentioned, they locked in their slots for the playoffs. So, but Indonesia is going to play against number 1 from Group A, and then Malaysia will place from number 2 from Group A. So it looks like that's going to be the bracketing eventually here. But we'll look at the next matchup that will be on stream, because our next matchup is going to be Cambodia versus Thailand. This one is also, I believe, a pretty important match for both of these teams. I'm going to go ahead and look up here real quick. How are their points looking for both of them? So I know, Thailand is second currently in Group A, and Cambodia is number 3. So very important game for both of them. As long as this is updated, I think either of these will also get them that number 2 slot from Group A that they need. So very crucial match between these two. And, you know, Mirko, I know we've already gotten to watch Cambodia play, but on stream, we have not been able to see Thailand, I believe. And I remember seeing the comments yesterday on some people asking, like, what about Thailand, like the team from Thailand. So I think there's going to be a lot to kind of like uncover as those two kind of battle it out. But are you thinking Cambodia has this? Because we are somewhat familiar with Cambodia.
Me personally, yeah, my prediction has got to be Cambodia should be able to take this, right? They were really, really close to Myanmar. I think those two are really going to be the real contenders coming in from this group. But Thailand, they're looking undefeated as well. At this point, they're 2-0, 4-0 in games. So based on the group up against Brunei and Timor-Leste, let's hope that Thailand can actually, you know, come in with a curveball, maybe get some big wins here, maybe take a game off of Cambodia, because that'll be very, very interesting to see another nation, another region climbing up rapidly as well, because that's what we saw from Cambodia and technically from Myanmar as well. There's that one time where they just boost up in skill and they're able to just tell the world that, you know, we're here to compete, we're here to be contenders.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it unfold. I'm going to be watching and spectating that one because you're going to be joined with Eterna for the next one. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break here. It's going to be about 50 minutes before the next match because, hey, the last series was quite fast. So take a break, 50 minutes, get the food that you need, and then we'll be back after this. Again, I'm Naisu, that's Mirko, and we'll be back after the break.